Welcome everyone. The webinar will begin shortly and will be recorded. Connect with the campaign for grade level reading on social media. On Facebook, like the page Campaign for GLR, and on Twitter, follow the account at Reading by Third. Please use hashtag Learning Tuesdays and tag us to tweet anything you learned from today's webinar, and we'll be sure to retweet. We encourage you to share your questions, reflections, and observations on social media. Once again, we would love to connect. So on Facebook, like the page Campaign for GLR, and on Twitter, follow the account at Reading by Third. Again, the webinar will begin shortly. Okay, welcome again, everyone, to today's webinar. My name is Sierra Sanchez, and I'll be behind the scenes helping to produce this conversation. I have just a few housekeeping details before we get started. First, we would love for you to introduce yourself, so please use the chat box at the bottom of the screen to share your name, city or state, and your organization. Be sure when responding to select both panelists and attendees so that we all know who is here. All attendees are in listen-only mode, but we encourage you to post any questions that you may have during the conversation into the Q&A box. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording, as well as any resources that you see shared as links in the chat, will be compiled and shared in a follow-up email to all webinar registrants. Finally, we'll be posting a brief on-screen evaluation during closing and highly encourage you to respond. This helps us with our commitment to continuous improvement. Lastly, I'd like to call your attention to our upcoming GLR Learning Tuesdays webinars. Tomorrow on April 20th, we invite you to join us for a session from the Housing as a Platform series focused on parents as critical partners with Akron Metropolitan Housing Authority. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Wednesday, April 20th. Next week, we invite you to wrap up the month of April with us for a session titled Starting Early, State Investments that Support Children's Language and Literacy Development. The following week on May 3rd, we invite you to join us for a session focused on seizing the moment, closing the digital equity gap, and then again on May 10th at 12:30 Eastern Time for a Crucible of Practice Salon on CGLR communities and strive together. Registration and more information will be posted in the chat box now, and we hope you can join us. Joining me now is Emily Samus, Senior Consultant with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. Thank you and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Sierra, and welcome to all joining us today. Before we begin our session, we want to say a quick word in honor of an esteemed leader who has sadly just recently passed away. Lillian Lowry was a longtime CGLR collaborator, having joined us on several GLR Learning Tuesday learning opportunities as a moderator and a presenter, most recently last summer when she moderated a panel of chief state school officers about their plans to accelerate equitable learning recovery as we emerge from the pandemic. Dr. Lowry had an enormous impact on education locally and nationally, having served as chief state school officer in both Delaware and Maryland before joining Education Testing Service to lead their student teacher assessment work. As Maryland State Superintendent of Schools, Lowry oversaw the state's adoption of Common Core standards and moved to reduce dependence on out-of-school suspensions, particularly for Black and minority students, and promoted no-cost breakfast and lunch programs. Under her leadership in Delaware, the state was one of the first 2 states to win a federal Race to the Top grant, which brought $119 million federal investment to support Delaware schools and increase student learning. There are many more ways that Dr. Lowry made an impact, and she was known for promoting professional development for teachers and served as a mentor to many. We'll link more information about Dr. Lowry's important contributions in the chat, and all are encouraged to read more about her and her life. And we now just want to take a quick, brief moment of silence to honor Dr. Lillian Lowry. Okay, thank you all for joining us in that memorial of Dr. Lillian Lowry. I'm now very excited to welcome each and every one of you, and thank you for joining us for today's GLR Learning Tuesdays webinar, Taking Stock and Looking Forward, Principles on K-3 Learning. In today's exchange of ideas, we again have the opportunity to partner with New America and pick up on a discussion we co-sponsored last fall titled The Kindergarten Exodus, Why, Where, and What We Can Do Now, that engaged district superintendents in an exploration of the issues related to the pandemic's impact on kindergarten enrollment and how districts were attempting to support elementary schools in meeting their youngest students' needs. Now, nearly a full school year has gone by, and today we have this great opportunity to hear directly from elementary school principals and early learning experts about what is most effective when it comes to decisions being made to deploy resources to strengthen learning in kindergarten and the early grades, while doing the important work to engage the parents and families. Today's panel is moderated by Laura Bornfriend, New America's Director of Early and Elementary Education Policy, who will engage a panel of principals from diverse districts, along with an expert from the Educare Learning Network, to explore what is most needed for early grade students as we continue to work toward accelerating equitable recovery. And to get us started, I have the privilege of introducing our moderator, Laura Bornfriend, who will then briefly introduce our panel and get our discussion going. Laura is Senior Fellow and Advisor on Early and Elementary Education with the Education Policy Program at New America, where she writes on transforming kindergarten and promotes policy and practice to strengthen the transition into kindergarten and the early grades of elementary school. So Laura, I'm excited to now turn this over to you.
Thanks so much, Emily, and thank you to the Campaign for Grade Level Reading for holding this webinar and partnering again with New America. And finally, thanks to all of you in the audience for joining us this afternoon, and thanks to our panelists, which I'll introduce shortly, for participating in this conversation. So first, I'll start by introducing our panelists. Then I'll share some brief remarks to set up today's conversation, and then we'll dive in. So first, we have Julie Bloss. She's principal at Grove Early Childhood Center in rural Grove, Oklahoma. Julie has served in a variety of roles over the last 33 years, including elementary school principal, counselor, classroom teacher, and adjunct instructor. Welcome, Julie. Next, we have Seth Dobb, who is principal of the Academic Center for Excellence, a pre-K to 8th grade school in Orlando, Florida. Previously, he served as principal of Catalina Elementary School for 5 years, and Seth is also immediate past president of the Florida Association of School Administrators. Welcome, Seth. Next, we have Clarissa Dominici, who began her career in education over 18 years ago in Chicago Public Schools. She is currently the principal of Marvin Camrus Children's Engineering School, where she was one of the founding administrators 8 years ago. Welcome, Clarissa. Next, we have Ernest Sessoms Jr., who serves as the principal of Paul L. Dunbar Elementary School since 2018. He has been an advocate for teaching and learning for over 18 years, and he is currently also a doctoral student, at Liberty University and finalizing his requirements for an EDD in educational leadership. Welcome Ernest. We also have Jacqueline Brown Wright, who is a 2022 National Model School principal, who currently serves as a second-year principal of Brubaker Primary School. She was also Alabama's 2021 Distinguished Educator of the Year, and Jackie has worked in education for 2 decades. Welcome, Jackie. And finally, we have Andrea Pearson, our commentator for today. She is Vice President of the Educare Learning Network at Start Early. Andrea oversees and improves comprehensive systems of service delivery to the network members. She has worked for more than 20 years in pre-K to 12 education, including as a principal. Welcome, Andrea. The last 2 years have tested us all, but no more than they have tested our youngest students and educators. In spring 2020, very quickly, schools had to pivot to remote learning and new technologies. And by the fall 2021, most students and educators were back in the classrooms for in-person learning again, but schools looked and operated very differently than before, making interaction, relationships, and family engagement tough to say the least. We know that over these last 2 years, our young students have experienced learning loss in math and reading, but we know that academics aren't the only areas of loss. Educators and parents alike share concerns about students missing other important skills. Many children have needed extra help with things like getting along with other students, taking turns, listening to others. And as we all know, these skills are just as important for a foundation in learning as the academic skills. We know many students are still missing from enrollment data across the country. The big declines have been in preschool and kindergarten, and among children of color and children from families with low incomes. While in many places, students have come back to public school, in other districts, enrollment is still lower than it was in 2019. We know nearly half of public schools report teacher vacancies this year. This year, schools have experienced significant staffing challenges, and not just for teachers, but also bus drivers, substitutes, paraprofessionals, and other positions. And at a time when more support and consistency are needed, and building relationships with young learners is so important, these things have been sometimes difficult to come by. There are some bright spots. While the pandemic has greatly affected the way that instruction looks in the classroom with increases in technology use, as we'll hear today, this has been a positive effect in many ways. And we've seen increased attention on the importance of early childhood education. Some states are making big investments here this legislative session. And when we look more broadly at pre-K-12 education, over the last 2 years, the federal government has provided nearly $200 billion in COVID relief dollars. And this afternoon, we'll hear how those dollars are being used, and as well as what resources are still needed. We know that districts and school leaders across the country are thinking creatively to meet the new and diverse needs of young learners. And that's what we're going to talk more about today. So I invite our panelists to turn on their cameras and join the conversation. We'll start with reflections on this last year, then we'll move into what's working, innovations and successes, and then finally we'll wrap up with what's still needed. So I'm going to start with a question to all of you, and Clarissa, I'd like you to to respond first. If you all could tell us just a little about your school and your students who attend, and then share your reflections of this last year. What's surprised you? What's been especially challenging? And what are you most proud of? Clarissa?
No, thank you. So first of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. So our school is a pre-K through 8th grade school in Chicago Public Schools. We have over 800 students at this time. Our enrollment has declined about 120 students over the past 2 years. And so for me, one of the challenges that we have come with, or one of the surprises, I guess, let me start there, is just we knew entering this year it would be different. We didn't realize how different. So if any of you are familiar with Chicago, you know that the weather changes within a few days. And so, right, the running joke is if you don't like the weather, stick around for 24 hours, it's going to change. Basically, that's been kind of my experience this year, right? If something's not going well, don't worry, it's going to change in about a week. So we were really excited to have the kids a little bit nervous. One of the things that really surprised us, we knew that there was going to be a lot of SEL. things that we would have to work through. For the kids, really, it wasn't so much emotional, it was a lot around the social side. So the emotions came in with the adults, both those of the staff members and with parents. So it's been an interesting take on SEL, where normally we really focus on the kids, but really it's like with the kids socially. So how might we get them to experience school a little bit different? Um, Especially during the pandemic, right? This like ironicity of the two ideas. One of the things that we're really proud of, so while it's taken a toll, I think, on the staff, just again emotionally, we've switched off doing a lot of normally we do a lot of our committee work after school. But teachers have been really focusing on making sure that the kids have things like field trips and after school program and sports programs to a degree never before. So the kids are getting that extra where they're not able to pour into the adults under our normal school functioning. It's really going back and being invested in the kids' social. So super proud of that.
Thanks, Clarissa. Ernest, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your school and how this year has gone.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Ernest Sessoms here, proud principal of the dynamic Paul Lawrence Dunbar Elementary School. Just a little bit about our school. We're located right in the heart of downtown Atlanta, Georgia. So we are definitely an urban school. I also like to call our school a neighborhood school. The majority of our kids are located right in the heart of the neighborhood that we're located in. Most of our kids are walkers. We only have one school bus that transports students. And so I know that's unique for many schools. Usually it's many more than that. So we're definitely a neighborhood school located in the heart of Atlanta. We are also 100% Title I, free and reduced lunch. I like to call ourselves, we are a high poverty school, but we're also a high potential school. So even though we have students with families that have some definite needs and some needs for supports, we have so many students that are ready to move, and we're just here to change their trajectory of their futures. One of the things that I feel like I was surprised about this year was the challenge of staffing. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen in the past. On a given day, you would have 5 and 6 staff members absent. And for a small school like ourselves, with about 300 students, that's a tremendous amount of people. We only have about 20 teachers on staff. So if 5 of those teachers are absent, that's a tremendous loss for our students instructionally. Of course, substitutes were rare, and there was a shortage for subs. And so we had a real commitment from our support staff, whether it was our instructional coaches, our coordinators, our interventionists. We all became teachers. I remember one time where I actually had to cover a class for music, and I wasn't sure if it was standards based, but we had a great time. But that just shows the camaraderie that my staff has and commitment to students. One of the things I'm also very proud of is our partnership with Sheltering Arms Educare. I wish we could have an Educare Sheltering Arms in every school, because it's so critical to have that pipeline of making sure that kids get what they need from 6 weeks all the way to pre-K and again until they leave us in 5th grade. So that will be one of the things that I'm most proud of, is our partnership and our camaraderie as a staff to really hang in there and to really give our kids what they need.
Thanks, Ernest. Jackie, tell us about your school and what surprised you and what are you proud of?
Well, our school is Brubaker Primary School, where amazing happens for kids. We are a 2022 National Model School, and we've been identified by the International Center for Leadership in Education. We're really excited because I'm just a second-year principal. I've only done this for 2 years, but in 2 years, we were able to close our reading achievement gap from 18% proficiency to 48% proficiency. And through the pandemic, because I only know how to be a principal in a pandemic, our team chose to invite innovation. That's one of our core values. Tech is here, it's here to stay. And so rather than letting go of some of the things the pandemic taught us the first year, we decided to continue with those this year. One huge benefit that we found is the use of artificial intelligence. We serve 646 pre-K through second graders, 40% of whom are ESL or English language learners. And we just are really excited about the way that our team came together, just like Principal Sessoms at Dunbar. We found as principals and assistant principals that we had to go in and teach as well. We found that our parents, our teachers, and our kids, and our principals, us too, we've all experienced trauma through the pandemic. And the trauma has been at work, it's been at home, it's been everywhere. And so we resolved at BPS to, number one, teach hope. And number two, make sure that we are trauma sensitive as we deal with every child and every parent. And so those things have worked for us. But again, we've encountered some traumatized parents that we've had to deal with. We've encountered some traumatized teachers who lost loved ones through the pandemic and who had to work through some really, really tough days. And we've experienced traumas ourselves as principals. So a lot of what we do now, it has to start at the heart and end there as well. And so that's what we've resolved to do at Brubaker Primary School, where amazing happens for kids and our teachers too.
I love your positive messages, and look
it's hard work. It's all hard work.
Look forward to talking more about the tech in a minute, but I'm going to turn over to Julie. How about you? Tell us about your school.
I am so very fortunate. I work in a rural school in Oklahoma where I serve approximately 320 4- and 5-year-olds, pre-K and kindergarten here, approximately maybe an hour and a half from Tulsa. I would tell you where my town is, but it's so small you wouldn't probably know where it is. So my school is a Title I school with a high population of Native American children. And we have had just a very, very difficult year at my school site. I am a small school, just like Principal Sessoms, where I have 25 certified teachers and 45 staff members total. And at the very beginning of the summer and going into the first semester, we lost 2 teachers in our small site. And so it was a very difficult year working through our grief and loss as a staff, and knowing that we had to continue doing what was best for students and rising through our grief was challenging, but very powerful. We are an MTSS school, so we have worked becoming trauma sensitive and working with MTSS and our state department. So all of the training that we have worked through and practiced in the past 3 years really almost prepared us to help us through the journey that we would have to go through together as a staff. And it really unified us as a strong family. Speaking of family, as all other communities, I'm sure, we have lost multiple family members in our staff as well. So something that surprised me is when we returned to the building in the fall, it was important to us to take things off of our plate and to simplify and really focus upon what needed to be done, what was absolutely necessary, because the load of grief and trauma was so heavy and hard. We knew we needed to do what was best for students and to meet their educational and emotional needs, but we also knew we just couldn't do everything we'd done in the past. And so letting go of some things was okay. And it was so very helpful and such a relief. And by doing that, we lightened our burden and we made it through. We're happy to say we made it through.
Thank you for sharing that, Julie. And I think that's you bring an important lesson that it's not always about adding more. It's sometimes you have to take a look at what you're not able to do anymore, what you can take off your plate to do other things better. And I know the grief and loss isn't something that we all want to talk and think about, but it's important. And I know that there are other people on this call, other leaders that have likely experienced similar situations. So thank you. Seth, you would tell us about your school and your year.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Seth Dobb, and I am the proud principal of the Orange County Public Schools Academic Center for Excellence. We are a pre-K through 8 school in the heart of Paramore, and Paramore is a very historic district in the city of Orlando. We have been there since 2017. We have about 1,000 students on campus every day. We are the highest poverty level school within the district. Although we are the highest poverty level school, we do have the best students within the district. I want to be clear about that. Our school, like I said, was built in 2017, so we're about 5 years old. Our students who live within the Paramore community were bused to 7 different elementary schools and 3 different middle schools. Our city and our community came together about 10 years ago to come up with a plan to bring a school back to the Paramore community. And that is where we are right now at OCPS ACE. We are a community partnership school, so we do have a set community partners. This past year was interesting, so let's think about it. Our school has been only 5 years old. Also think about bringing community back together, 7 different elementary schools back to one school. Within our Paramore community, there's different streets, different communities. Bringing them back to one was very unique. I was not there for the first opening, but so think about 5 years ago, we had an opening. It was getting the students to understand the importance of our school. Then we shut down for a pandemic. So now we're kind of rebuilding. So one success story that I will say, or thing that I'm excited for this year is, well, first of all, we only have 24 more days left of the school year. That's right there, a success story. But bringing students back to campus, seeing them, giving them the hugs again, and and being able to actually, the high fives, the fist bumps, and just seeing the smiles of the students to actually come back to a campus to learn. So that's been one of our success stories, as it has been with I think all of us. And that's about OCPS ACE.
Thank you, Seth. And Andrea, I'd love to hear from you, just thinking about your network. What have Educare centers seen in 3- and 4-year-old classrooms this year?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and thanks so much for including me in today's discussion. I know, I think I'm seeing so many nodding heads, and I know for the folks that aren't on camera, I imagine they're experiencing the same. I think we all have had such shared experiences these last few years. So, I don't work directly with kids and families anymore. I started out as a teacher, was a counselor and a school principal for a time, but I now get to work with the Educare Learning Network in our Chicago office, but we support a network of 25 birth through age 5 programs around the country who are they are in urban communities, suburban, rural, on tribal land. They're full day, full year programs. And we like to think about the intersection of our work between research, program, and policy. So we really, work really hard on behalf of the kids and families and staff who are a part of our Educare programs, but our goal is really to make sure that all children in the country are ready for kindergarten and for success in life and beyond. So we really, really look to see how can we amplify anything that we're learning, and establish great partnerships with others to be able to share that work. So, I think building on what everyone has shared, which I think our Educare programs around the country have also experienced, one of the things that I think we have to call out to is the incredible resilience of our children, their families, our staff, and our leaders. I know sometimes our leaders don't get much credit, but my goodness, they have continued, to show up in some really challenging times as well. And we've had to create rule books for, for things that we had never really anticipated and for which there were no rule books. And so one of the benefits I think that we've been able to enjoy is we've had 25 sets of leaders, teachers, assistants, family engagement staff really coming together and sharing with each other. We really think about like mining innovation and trying to, we establish communities of practice so that all of our mentor teachers can come together from around the country and share about what's working or what isn't working, or, just having some thought partnership and, a listening ear from others who are in their role, who know what it's like to be, as you said, having to fill in a music class when they had never done that before, or, having to completely, flip their whole day at the drop of a hat. So, similarly, our focus has really been on social emotional supports for kids and staff and families. We can't underestimate the social and emotional needs of our staff either. Really including that trauma-informed care for everyone in the building, as I think has been articulated here, that we really have experienced a shared trauma and we really can't underestimate that. So I appreciated, Julie, what you were saying about sometimes we have to put some things down and just be together and hold space for, where everyone is in that moment on that day. Because there has been such a sense of shared loss. So, we turn to the things that we know about kids, right? Kids learn through play. They learn by being together, right? They learn by having caring adults who are side by side with them, kind of following their lead and really engaged in exploration with them. So we've really tried to, to focus on that. But also really connecting with each and every family, recognizing that, a child's parents or guardians are their first teacher and their lifelong teacher. And so, we really want to connect with them and have a sense of what are the goals of that family? What is it that they hope? What are they noticing at home? And how can we partner with them to achieve some of those mutual goals? And we're finding that, the more we can do that, and we've had to be very creative in going about, building those relationships, right? And recognizing that, in many of our schools, parents still can't come into the building yet, because of some of the continued COVID restrictions. So, getting really creative in the ways that we are engaging with families, inviting them in, and really listening to them, right? To hear, do they need support with, food security? Do they need support with making sure they've got enough, diapers or wipes or formula or, whatever the case may be? I mean, it's really hard to think about learning loss if you're worried about, how you're going to figure out your next meal. And so we've seen some really awesome community partnerships established as well around the country. I mean, folks have really done a great job in our educare organizations and within their communities of linking arms with others to say we all have, it's good for everyone when children and families have what they need. So how can we pool our resources together and make sure that, families have what they need? So, and the only other piece that I will add, which, certainly is work that we've been engaged in for a very long time and will be engaged in for a long time to come. But I think having a focus too on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and really looking at racial equity, really ensuring that every child and every family has access to what they need, and ensuring that, that they've got a path that is really going to allow them to reach their fullest and highest potential. So, building out a lot of tools and resources for schools to engage in conversation and, really just make sure that that everyone has a shot, so that when they arrive in these schools to work with these amazing principals, they're in really great shape.
Thank you, Andrea. And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question that I didn't let you know in advance, but I think it'll be one that you can handle. We've heard social emotional learning talked about, several times. A lot of you mentioned it. Could you just unpack that a little bit? I think it's sometimes a term that isn't well understood. And if you could just take a moment and, just go ahead and unpack that term for us.
Yeah, sure. And I welcome my more knowledgeable peers here too, to chime in and help fill in gaps that I may have missed. So, certainly, I think when we think about school, right, we know we have to learn to read, we have to learn to count, right? There are certain, skills and knowledge that are important to achieve or to develop, but especially when we think about early childhood, right? And the ways that we exist together, right? And some of the skills and habits that we don't necessarily assess as regularly, right? They don't show up on state test scores after third grade. But we think about how can children, regulate their emotions? How are they able to articulate their thoughts and feelings? How are they able to interact with other children? How are they able to ask for what they need, to engage in problem solving or conflict resolution, or to let someone know, I didn't like it when you did that to me, please don't do it again, right? Or are they able to go back and repair something when they have done, caused harm in some way to another child? Do they have, some of those executive functioning skills to be able to exist, to coexist as a part of a community, and to recognize their own self-worth within that community, but also be able to hold space for that of others? And so it's learning how to be within their own minds and bodies, or I should say, Principal Wright, within their own hearts and minds, because that is heart work too. But developing some of those skills that we need to exist in society, right? That we need to be able to have, so that we can engage with others, that we can then focus on what it is that we're learning to do, and what others are asking of us. So I think when we think about social emotional learning, it's really supporting children in becoming who they are in every way.
Thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate that. And I think, that's something that I'm hopeful will carry forward, that a lot more, classrooms will have that focus as a
Is it okay for me to jump in here? I have something to add about social emotional learning.
Oh yeah, I'd love for you to. Go ahead.
So this year, we definitely saw that need, and I spoke about the trauma sensitive piece earlier. So it's awesome to hear that Andrea and Educare Learning Network have started to focus on this and are really trying to do something about it. This year, we started something called Get in Rhythm at our school. And basically, all of our little ones can come into class in the mornings, and even though they can't verbalize, well, something not so nice was said to me, or my feelings don't feel just right, or my body isn't as energized as normal, our students can pick from emojis. So they have the emojis to kind of help us understand how they're feeling. The teachers can gauge it. And from there, they watch a very short video clip that helps get them centered and settled for the day based on how they said they feel. And so we're able to gauge that for every little one at our school. And it really does help us start conversations with them about how to make sure that our day doesn't continue in a bad way, but there are things we can do to fix it, and people here to help you.
Yeah, that's great. And Principal Wright, since you're already talking, I'm gonna direct this next question first to you. Thinking about the impacts of the pandemic that the pandemic has had on children in kindergarten and the early grades. Talk about some of the things you've implemented. You just talked about one, but what else have you implemented during the pandemic that has really been helpful at meeting children's needs? And if it's something you want to continue post-pandemic, please share that as well.
There are two pieces that I really want to share here. One is our Brilliance Block. We have what's called a BPS Amazing Brilliance Block. And in our Brilliance Block, we make sure that we focus on all of the reading foundation and math foundational skills. And I did share a link to Brilliance Block with our panelists earlier. But Brilliance Block is 36 weeks of aligned reading and math resources. They're just videos, but think about it. I developed this before my very first day as principal. When I met with the 80 members of my staff, I provided this document to them so that our parents, our teachers, myself, our babies could all be on the same page week by week, no matter if we were going to be at home, face to face, or blended. We were all going to start our day the exact same way with reading foundations and math foundations. And that is still what we do today. Our kids love it. The next piece that we did was focus on closing our reading achievement gap. Again, when I came, it was 18% of second graders graduating or leaving our school as proficient readers. Alabama is now under the Alabama Literacy Act law, and students that do not read proficiently by third grade will be retained. So that's a huge weight on us. And I will not be the principal to answer to parents and say, well, we're sorry, we dropped the ball. Oh, absolutely not. We're going to make sure that we meet the needs of kids. And if we have to pull in artificial intelligence to do that, that's what we're going to do. And so we started that last year, and it has continued this year, and we are still seeing tremendous gains, so much so that by mid-year on our STAR assessment, we had moved I think it was 121 students by 3 proficiency levels. And we're a 100% Title I school, 40% Hispanic, and the other is African American. And so we do serve minority students, but we find because of our intentional inclusivity with our students, we also serve nonverbal autistic children as well at our site. But because we have really rallied around our parent community that speak both languages, they really have supported our efforts. And that's a part of the reason why we've been successful this year. Our parents have really bought in. So 2 things, a mirror for artificial intelligence, closing that reading gap, and then Brilliance Block, those 36 weeks of reading foundation skills that the instructional leader provides to the entire school community so everyone's on the same page at the beginning of every day.
Great, great. Who else would like to share? What have you implemented?
I'll jump. Good afternoon again. Well, as you understand from the pandemic, our students were working remotely. And so for kindergartners, first graders, even second graders, that was just a detriment to their development and what they need as students in terms of instruction. So we wanted to make sure we gave an opportunity for our kids to have that kinesthetic opportunity of learning. Kids were on iPads, and so they never had an opportunity to really understand, am I left-handed? Am I right-handed? Am I a lefty or a righty? So we take those things for granted, but we found out that a lot of our kids did not understand their gross motor skills, how to hold a pencil, how to cut with scissors. And so we had to find time in our instructional day to address those needs. Fortunately, Atlanta Public Schools opted to give every elementary school an additional 30 minutes in the school day. So we were able to have what we call an intervention block. At Dunbar, we call it target time. So during target time, we're able to work on those deficits and things that students came needing or lacking, as well as being responsible for those standards of their current grade level. So we really took advantage of that target time. At Dunbar, we made sure that every class had a second set of hands, another adult in the room on staff. So that meant our specials teachers, our MTSS specialists, our gifted teacher, even our social worker. We were there and co-teaching with teachers to make sure we were able to give those kids that support that they needed, individualized support, small group support. So that was one of the game changers for us. In addition to that, we wanted to make sure that our parents were fully aware of the heavy lift that was happening. So we had intensive parent meetings specifically for our pre-K and kindergarten parents. It was hard for them because normally during open house, we were able to invite them in, come into the classroom, but due to COVID restrictions, they were not able to come in, sit in the classrooms as normal to really understand the dynamic of the classroom and where their child would be for the full instructional day. So we did do a tour where they were able to at least peek into the classrooms to see where their babies would be for the day. But we wanted to make sure we had those parent conferences virtually. Can't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So Zoom is something that we still hold dear to our hearts in having parent conferences. So we still had those conferences with our parents, especially with our kinder parents. So just making sure we maximize that target time. That was one of the game changers for us, for our kinder babies and our pre-K babies.
Thanks, Ernest. And yes, we've all come to love Zoom, but there have been some real good uses for it. And I think connecting with families in different ways is one of those. That's Julie or Clarissa?
Yeah, so for us, we took a little bit different spin. Like I said, for us, a lot of it we noticed for the kids came in with a different set of social skills. Just thinking about when they are kindergarten specifically, if they attended pre-K, they were 3-year-olds, and here we have a half-day pre-K program. So they really didn't have an opportunity to do a lot of that social. While we are definitely incorporating a lot of the technology in, it's been they come in, their technology skills are better than ours were 3 years ago. Definitely, but I think for us, it's been a lot around doing play-based and thinking about how might we do a lot more play so that way the kids are exploring like their curiosity, some of the problem solving, and really having natural interactions, developing the language. What we noticed from those kids being in, here we use Google-based products. So what we've noticed, the kids from me, is it's very one-directional conversation. So if there was a question, they would have to wait, pause, like taking turns. So some of those skills were really well developed. But like having natural conversations back and forth was something that we really had to work on. So naturally putting in a lot more of that play into kindergarten and pre-K has been a huge game changer for us here at Cameras.
Yeah.
One thing that we've done at OCPS ACE is every day we ask our teachers to do a class meeting to make sure that our students are, to take their temperature every morning, not physically anymore. I shouldn't use that, that's not a good analogy. To take just the temperature of the students and how they're doing. Working and living in such a high need, high poverty, for a very fragile area, as we all know, students come with a lot. I mean, they might have come last night without air conditioning or without electricity or without heat on those very few days it's cold in Central Florida, or without running water. So, our students every morning do come with a different set of concerns. So we definitely encourage our teachers and require our teachers to take that temperature of the student each morning to find out, how the student is, how they're doing. And we've also learned that some students are not verbal about it, but they will be, I think Principal Wright said, they will be, they're more, they'll write it down instead of actually share. And so it gives us time to have those conversations. And then also if we see a student is in need through conversations of our teachers, we send them in different directions, whether it's meeting with the guidance counselor, the SAFE coordinator, or someone who they feel very comfortable with to kind of talk about their, what's going on at home or in their personal life. Also, one thing we've done to build relationships with our families in regards to SEL is once a quarter, so every quarter, so every 9 weeks, on a Saturday, we go out into the community and do some community outreach. Whether it's at a local, we've done it before at a local grocery store, a local corner store, a church, and we use their facility, the outside of their facility, and we bring activities for families, we bring food, we bring games, and just a way for our families to know that we are there for them, not just on our campus, but we're there for them within the community. So that's been a pretty successful endeavor that we've done at OCPS ACE and in other schools that I've been in as well. But like we've all said, building community after everyone being not allowed on campus for 2 years, it's we got to change that mindset and really welcome our families back onto campus.
I've been telling families for a couple of years that we're truly in early ed, we're a teaching school. We teach children so many things beyond academics. And so for the last 2 years, we've been teaching children social skills. So we teach them how to get along, how to resolve conflict, how to use your words, how to keep your hands to yourselves, and all of those social skills that are truly behind because of COVID and not having opportunities to be out and about. Because we are seeing a delay, such a delay in social skills in pre-K and kindergarten. So we have an embedded curriculum that our teachers teach daily, and they're thoughtful lessons about all of those different pieces of social skills, so that regardless if you went to pre-K, if you were at home, if you did online learning, or whatever your background was, everyone has the same opportunity to enter our public school, be in a classroom with your peers, and go through those lessons together. And it's been very valuable learning, and we have seen such an impact on our student behavior, on a decrease in office referrals, and at such a better positive climate, because we're teaching expectations, and we're teaching students what is best in public school.
And of course, having children in the classroom and teaching them to be engaged is, really an important first step for then, teaching those more academic skills as well. I want to talk about the federal recovery dollars and that have, been focused on learning recovery, and some $200 billion going into schools. Can you talk a little bit about how you've made decisions about spending that money, where they've really been most helpful for what you're doing in your schools?
We're using our ESSER funds at BPS for after-school enrichment, and also we already have 80 teammates, but we're still increasing because our babies need a lot of support. And so our after-school program, it actually consists of course, Amira, Imagine Learning. So we have a digital component, but our teachers are also completing hands-on projects. So hands-on STEAM projects, and STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So our teachers will be completing those projects. Our students will have outdoor play. And again, those opportunities for them to just continue to engage with each other meaningfully, even after the school day. So many times they go home and they're all alone. So we just want to keep them here with us and continue to engage them. The more conversations they have with each other, the more their vocabulary grows, the better their reading becomes. And we've just seen a lot of improvements in our students, especially with their reading this year, and math in second grade.
Thanks, Jackie. Seth, I saw you were going to jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah, so being such a large district, we are the, I believe, the 9th largest district in the country. So the way that we get our ESSER funds, it goes from the district level then down to the schools. So they kind of more decide of what they're doing with the money. But I will tell you, they made a great decision. Based on your level of students who read below grade level, you received additional teachers on your campus. So this past year, we received 22 at my personal campus, 22, we call them tier 1 teachers. So it was almost, they were in each grade level. So we spread them out throughout the grade levels, K through 8. And they were there to help support students with on grade level content. So the classroom teacher can then really focus on the tier 2 and tier 3 intervention that needed to happen. So it worked really well for Orange County. When we first got the funds, we weren't sure how it was going to work, but these tier 1 teachers are certified. They are just a teacher just as any other teacher within our county or within the state, but they're just there to support certain groups of students who need that additional support through the pandemic, as we all know that they had that learning loss.
That's awesome that your district is doing that with the funds. That's awesome.
At Dunbar, we did some of the same initiatives. One of the main things that we noticed was that we need more hands on deck because our students came with such deficits because of the pandemic. So we used our what we call CARES funds in order to hire additional staff, additional paraprofessionals. We also staffed our after-school program I think we were one of the first schools in our district that actually opted to do an in-person after-school program early in the school year. We call it Target Time After School. So we were able to hire teachers from our school, paraprofessionals from our school to offer those opportunities. And then, of course, technology. We were uniquely advantaged to have a one-to-one device per student. So, you know, with devices, we know that technology often fails us. So we needed to have backup devices. We needed to have other Chromebooks, loaners, if you will. So when there's something going on with the student's computer, you know, instruction doesn't stop, because we do have a turnaround process for repairs and getting new devices, but we wanted to have loaners right available in the school so that we would make sure those things would continue. So we definitely used it for our after school program, for additional staffing, and then for the technology as well.
I see some insight from Philip in the chat, and he's talking about out of school learning opportunities. I guess I'm just curious, are these like field trips, virtual field trips? I just want to learn. I'm curious about that. Does anybody else know? Mr. Sessoms or any of our panelists?
We did have a few virtual field trips. We partner with an organization called Chef Ashley, and they work with actually food pantries in our community. And so what they do is they actually do Zoom lessons with our students in terms of helping them to create healthy snacks and healthy meals. And so what they do is they provide all of the food, all the ingredients for our students, and they Zoom into our classrooms with our students and showing them how to prepare those meals. So that was an opportunity that we had through one of our partners, the local mobile food bank. And then of course, we had one of the things I was very excited about during the pandemic, and we continued, was the virtual field trips for our kindergartners. So they were able to go to the zoo, they were able to go to a farm virtually and still explore those different concepts. So virtual field trips, we had those a lot more during the pandemic, but we're continuing with those, and you know, we're not going to lose those as well.
Thanks, Ernest. Julie or Clarissa, do you want to jump in on recovery dollar decisions?
We were so fortunate to be able to add additional staff members, an MTSS coordinator, a school counselor, support staff, after years of staff cuts due to a shortage of funding. It's just been such a game changer to have additional staff members. It's impacted student learning and just been helpful. I mean, that's simple, but so true. It's been able to help us with MTSS and RTI providing support and intervention for students, and to have an additional counselor has been so very helpful, especially this year. So it's hard to imagine the year without the extra people. I know someone, I can't remember who mentioned it earlier, but oftentimes during a shortage of substitutes, especially in a rural community, I know that's a nationwide concern, but when you only have 3 people on your substitute list and you have so many people out, or those subs aren't available, you just cover for each other. And if you have additional staff, those are just extra people you can stick in a classroom. And if they're already familiar with students and they know what those students need and they know your practices in your building, then the day can continue and learning can continue, and you don't have to worry about what you're going to do. So like I said, I can't imagine without them what we would have done.
No, thank you. For us, we've done very similar things, but I like looking through chat, somebody called out, definitely one of the things that we have been blessed to is to be able to keep a lot of our like arts, our music, our STEM, our exploratory classes. I think, again, just thinking about like the social emotional, letting kids express themselves in different ways has really been powerful for them. And just having extra money, like in addition, like to the MTSS intervention, but making sure that we're keeping that part alive and that we're developing the child as a whole. I think sometimes in times of pandemic, right, we definitely there's very real pressure always around standardized testing. And more so, right, we came in and everybody's panicked. What about this learning loss? What about this learning loss? But we have to always remember we're dealing with human beings, right? And we're developing their souls, their minds as well, and character. And so just making sure that we continue to fund those opportunities for the kids has been powerful for us.
You all mentioned staffing and some other things, but staffing as being a really helpful way to use recovery dollars, whether it was the district choice or school choices. But I know at the same time, we've heard that there have been some real challenges finding people and you know, and retaining people. So could you talk a little bit about you know, what staffing challenges you've seen and how you've and also acknowledging that, you know, educators have needed extra support just like the kids during this time too. So how have you supported your educators, supported yourselves, and dealt with any staffing challenges you've had?
I'm a firm believer that happy schools matter. Every day won't be a happy day, but the energy in the school should be inviting and warm. And student achievement does not happen in places that have negative or just toxic climate and culture. So we started to focus on that first. One of the things we do to get our teachers to come to work is snack fairies. They don't know which day snack fairies are going to be, but I have my Dollar Tree wings on my back with my snack fairy sign, and I run to Sam's and I go and grab whatever snacks I know they love. Sometimes it's a sunshine cart, but we do those things to make them feel like they're loved as soon as they walk through the door. And one teacher even said, it was her first year at our school last year with me. It was her first year and it was mine as well. But she said, Principal Wright, it feels like we get a hug every day we come through the door. And that's how they should feel, especially in a pandemic, because again, we have to be trauma sensitive. Not only that, I have one of the largest faculties here in Montgomery, but one of the lowest attrition rates. Last year, not a single teacher wanted to transfer. And even this year, I still don't have any classroom teachers wanting to transfer or leave. If they're leaving, it's because they're retiring and that they're at the end of their career. We have waiting lists of people who want to work at our school and parents who are moving their children out of other zones to come to our school. People think our school is a magnet school, but it's not. It's a regular school where we try to make amazing happen for kids and teachers too. So loving them is how we get them to come back and treating them like humans first. And no faculty meetings, no unnecessary meetings. Why are we meeting when we have Zoom and Google Docs, faculty notes? All of my employees can read. They're highly intelligent, and I treat them as such. So they don't have to have faculty meetings with me every week if they meet their weekly high quality instruction goals.
Thanks, Jackie. Anybody else want to jump in on staffing?
Well, I have to say how much I appreciate Principal Wright talking about snacks, because my school runs on caffeine. You will find large beverages of caffeine. We have tea and coffee and all kinds of goodies in the workroom. But I will tell you, the first thing we did back this year when we came back is we gutted both of our faculty restrooms because they were gray and ugly. And I know this is a professional webinar, but our professional teachers and faculty members deserve a place to go that's wonderful. And each year I serve on the Oklahoma Principal of the Year Selection Committee, which also is the National Distinguished Principal of the Year Committee for NAESP. I know Principal Daub is an NDP. And when I went last year and chose that principal, I noticed all of the finalists, they had great bathrooms. Great schools who have great professionals have great bathrooms. So we gutted our bathrooms for our faculty and we made them amazing, like with nice paint and pictures and the good toilet paper. And they're nice now. And when you go in there, it's an oasis. The second thing I did this year that I'll share is I reached out to one of our local tribes after one of our teachers passed away. And I said, you know, we're going through a really hard spot. This is a tough time. And I don't know the chief, but I said, here's what's happened. And I could just really use some support for my school because we're struggling. And would you be willing to financially help us by providing a little getaway place for my teachers? Because, you know, we provide like a calm room for students who sometimes need a moment, a little moment. And I think our staff deserve that too. Sometimes they come and they're sick, they have migraine. They come and they just need a moment, a little getaway, a little break. And we're at capacity. So their room might not be available and you just need a little moment. And I said, here's what I want. And within half an hour, I had an Amazon massage chair with all the bells and whistles sent to my school for my staff. And we created a little spot for my staff because they deserve that. They deserve every bit of it after what we've been through and how hard they work every day. So we've got the treats, the caffeine, the bathroom, and the massage chair. And all it took was me asking. All it took was me asking, because there are so many people who do believe in our teachers and want to help. So I would recommend anybody reaching out, and I think you can get it done too.
It's those small things that make a huge difference. Andrea, what about in the Educare network? How are you supporting educators, teachers, in keeping them in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all share how challenging it can be to fill some of those open positions sometimes. And so, we have to be really creative about how we handle that. But once we are able to hire folks, we want to do everything we can to develop and retain them, right? And then they become our greatest advertisements for why they should come and work, with our programs. And Julie, I love your passion about this. We've seen a lot of our Educare schools do the same thing where, they've got the nice soap in the bathrooms, or they've used some grant dollars that they received to build or remodel a calm room for staff, where they've got a lot of the same tools that they use for the social emotional curriculum with the kiddos in the staff room as well, right? So the lavender essential oil or the head massagers or just dim lights, right? Just really calming atmosphere, and all of the grace and flexibility to access it when they need to, right? And to be able to kind of support each other so that it's not just this thing that looks nice, but nobody ever has time to go into, right? So, I think, again, that it's that parallel process, right? We know that our kids need it, but it's so important to acknowledge that the adults in the building do too. So I think that's been really powerful. And all of these amazing strategies that have been described around building a positive and inviting a supportive climate and culture. We cannot overemphasize how important that is, right? That people will continue to come and work hard when they know that they are seen and they are heard and they are valued, right? And I think we all know that our profession is not one that is often described in the ways that we hope it will be soon, right? That pay equity is an issue. There are, all sorts of challenges to address, but, we see really powerful things happening. One of the specific things that we are really focused on right now as well, we are a professional development provider at Start Early, which is where the Educare Learning Network backbone office is housed. And we have a wide variety of professional learning opportunities that are available. And pre-pandemic, we would put people on a plane, we'd have them in a room for a couple of days, we'd engage in these really great conversations. But like everyone, we had to, flip pretty quickly and turn those into virtual offerings. And obviously no one wants to sit on Zoom all day long. And so, we've really been thinking about how to take these professional learning opportunities and pull out the most essential content and break it up into small bites over time that are really easy for professionals to access, right? Because we know that no one has hours on end that they can contribute to. And so we've also done a DEIB audit of our content. We've gone through, we've worked with some external consultants to help us go through all of our content and the experience itself to articulate and identify, are there ways that we can make it more equitable or more inclusive? Can we tweak certain activities? Can we, use more inclusive language in different places? And so now we're undergoing a process of incorporating all of that, which we're really excited about. I think, one other thing that's really exciting that we're working on right now, and we've seen some of this already happening with some of our educare organizations around the country, where they are partnering with local colleges and universities so that when folks attend, one of our trainings is the essential practices of educare, right? And there's 4 different modules. One's about data, one's about teaching practices, one's about family engagement. And one's about embedded professional development, because we really believe that professional learning happens every day, every week, all year long. But when folks participate in those, in some of these educare organizations, they can actually earn credit toward an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. And we're looking to try and replicate that in, more broadly. And it's coming. We're working on that right now, but we're also earning CEUs toward a credential or toward renewing a credential. We want to make sure that when people participate in professional learning, obviously we think it's important for knowledge development and transferring that new knowledge into their daily practice, but we also want it to benefit their career trajectory, right? And to help them achieve some of the professional goals that they have. And so that's, I think, another way that we're thinking kind of at a systems level about how can we positively impact the structure of how our early childhood professionals engage in professional learning, and to really make sure that it benefits them in every way possible. So that's
Thanks,
that's an exciting area. Yeah.
You've given a lot of great, that's so important about professional learning and figuring out how to make it really accessible and more bite-sized for teachers. I think thank you for sharing that. I want to add in a question that has come in from the audience with a question that I have around what's top of mind for you all as you're thinking about next year, and thinking about what the needs are going to be going forward for your children and educators. And the question that came in from Rachel Kaplan is around sustainability of things that you've implemented this year. So if you can, speak to that about as you think about the future.
I'll jump right on in there. One of the things that come to mind for Dunbar, and this is also what we've noticed as a district, is that our current second graders, which will be rising third graders, this is a very important group of students, because these were our kindergartners that ended in March of 2020. These were our kindergartners who had their kindergarten year cut short and never got that full experience of a kindergarten year with that collaborative instruction, that interactive type of instruction. So as they're getting ready for that mighty third grade, and we know that third grade is a very critical year, Dr. Principal Wright also mentioned that as well. We want to make sure we have some things in place moving forward to really support that group of students, in addition to all the other things we're going to do to support kids across the school, because they're going to definitely need a deeper dive into phonics instruction. Phonics is so critical for all of our students. We have kids in 4th and 5th grade that are still suffering with a deficit in phonics, but specifically this group, looking at seeing what we can do for after school programs, maybe starting our tutorial a little bit earlier in the school year. Saturday school, we're going to have to pull out all the stops with our parent support, of course, and making sure we're doing everything we can for that population of students, that grade level.
One of the things that we're planning for this summer is a transition meeting for our rising kindergartners. So those students that will be entering kindergarten for the first time, we want to make sure that they have the opportunity, whether they attended pre-K or not last year. We want to give them 1 week, at least 1 week this summer, where they can come in and just be kindergartners for a week. This will help get mommy and daddy prepared for the real school year. We can get out any additional information that we need to get in advance for our babies. And it can also help us troubleshoot some of the things that we're going to encounter with them when they first come. It'll give us an opportunity to address those issues earlier. In addition to that 1 week that we're going to do with them, this is the first time we've done it in our district, but they're allowing us to include our students that attended our preschool last year. They can attend summer school this year for enrichment. In the past, summer school has been pretty much for remediation and or to prevent failure. And so this year they can actually attend for enrichment and to get that full summer of continued exposure, communication, play-based learning in a kindergarten setting as they rise to kindergarten. So those are some of the things we're looking to do this summer.
Seth, you want to go? Nice.
Yeah, it was interesting because, you know, I definitely agree with my colleagues. I was having a conversation with a few of our teachers. The students that we feel that are suffering the most, I thought it was going to be the second grade group that's currently now. We're seeing through our fifth graders. The fifth graders are the ones who lost the end of that third grade year. And I know we talked earlier today about the third graders. And in the state of Florida, we also have third grade mandatory retention. But of those third graders got promoted, and last year's third graders got promoted. So I'm seeing in my K-8 school right now, our lowest grade level is that that fifth grade group. I wonder what it'll look like next year when we have actually state assessments on those third graders who are now second graders. But in regards to sustainability, that's a question that we continue to ask our district. How are we going to sustain these tier 1 teachers when that funding is up? But the reality of it is when the funding is, I think, for another 2-3 more years, at that point, there will be teachers who are retiring, so those positions will be filled. So I'm not too concerned about that. But one thing that we do, the materials that we buy currently, you know, we sometimes might buy a few extra to have here and there as we might put in our closet for the next couple of years as things do happen. But I do agree with that sustainability. How are we going to sustain this in a couple of years from now? And how much, how long is this going to affect our children as they continue to move up the pipeline to middle and then to high school and to college and graduation? So.
Larissa or Julie, I want to give you the opportunity.
No, both definitely. I think everything my colleagues have mentioned on here. I think for us, like sustainability, just like any other year, it's always a question. I don't think there's ever been pipelines of money, and as like salaries go up and, you know, the same amount of money is there. I think that's just an ongoing question. I think this year it's really been able to us like testing out some of these other things that normally we don't do with the kids and writing grants around that. I'm thinking of some longer term things and partnerships someone had mentioned earlier. I'm thinking in terms of sustainability. I think for us next year, something that's top of mind is how to engage the parents. And I think this really, in some ways, ties into enrollment. Parents are still, again, their emotions are still high. I think it's calmed down a little bit, but like, how do we re-engage them in schools? And while we have all these great opportunities now where they don't have to physically come into the building, I also think, especially in the Latino community, where we are such like family-oriented people, it's hard. And Zoom it's good, and it does offer like snippets of like a 15-minute meeting or 20-minute, but having that like one-to-one conversation or having that social aspect with the parents, we're not seeing that. And so like even today, I was in a meeting earlier with the pre-K. Never before have we had trouble getting chaperones to come in. And a lot of it might be tied because they're nervous coming in or because of the financial impact. And now a lot more members of the family or different members of the family are having to get, second and third jobs. And so they're not able to come in as much. It's something that we're diving into. We're not exactly sure what is causing it, but definitely, and then hoping that then will bring back in the enrollment once people feel more comfortable coming back in.
Clarissa, I'm glad you raised that because that was something I wanted to hear more about. And while we're waiting to see if anyone from the audience has additional, questions to offer, I'd like the rest of you, how are you thinking about family engagement? It's for a lot of families, trust in schools has been hard over the last couple of years. And, just how are you thinking about that? How are you reaching out to families and thinking about bringing them back into the buildings when, safety allows for that?
I want to share. I have a couple of things that we've done. Number one, we push social media, and our parents know that I'm the one on our social media account. Also, every parent has my personal direct cell number. They don't call me all the time. They do not bother me unless they really need to get in touch with me. They know it's my personal number, and so they respect that. But as far as involving our parents on social media, every post we make, it's bilingual. So there's an English piece and there's a Spanish piece. Every flyer. If there is a parent meeting, I will have them virtually at 9, 12, 3, and 6 to meet anybody's work schedule. And we also provide the handouts in advance in case we cannot find a translator for that meeting. And I've tried to teach myself conversational Spanish, and the way I've done that is making sure I stay in my car line. I'm missing my favorite part of the day right now for this symposium. It's car duty time. And in knowing, when parents know that their principal is outside saying, "Good morning, families. Your child is safe with us today. They're going to have an amazing day." And the kids are asking for hugs as they get out of their cars. Not only that, that gives me the opportunity to communicate to every parent. I know your child by name. I know who they belong to. And I'm going to be able to tell you something after school that they did as well. So when that connection is there and it's established, because it wasn't last year. We've had to work towards this, but now that the connection is here, we have great parent turnout for our events at school. And we didn't start with face-to-face meetings with them. We started with Mommy and Me Yoga. We went to Mommy and Me Paint Party. And then we had a Mommy and Me PE class where our boys got to teach their parents or female figures or parent figures, kickball or PE, whatever they were learning in PE. These were the first experiences that our parents had, and they were coming in to do something one-on-one with their children. That kind of dispelled that fear, especially from our Hispanic families who don't necessarily know right off the first time that they come in that they're going to be received the exact same way as anyone who has my skin color or any other color. We've communicated love and they've responded well to it. But that was the biggest piece that my teachers explained to me when I did the needs assessment in July of 2020 when I first came on board. There was no parent involvement. I'm proud to say we just had our first PTA meeting in 4 years, and it was parent-led on last Thursday, April 14th. So we are moving in the right direction with parental involvement.
Congratulations. Julie, you mentioned that you have a lot of children from tribes in your school, and if you could speak just, how have you been able to engage those families and other families?
We have a very high percentage of parental involvement. It's not an issue here, but I would say it's because my staff does an amazing job reaching out to families and pulling them in. Now, in the past 2 years, we've had to do that virtually and we use Seesaw as a form of communication. We are very innovative at the beginning of the school. We offer all kinds of opportunities to bring families in. We do VR, virtual reality school tours. We do bingo. We do all kinds of different activities to help families, to welcome them in before teachers are here, just to help them feel comfortable with the building and begin answering all of those questions that are important, especially to new families who may not have had children here before. I just remember the year that we opened, which this is our 15th year, how nervous I was for my own child to come here. And I built the building and I hired all the people. So I think if I was that in a tizzy and concerned and worried, well, how in the world did all of those other people feel? Because they didn't have a personal relationship with the staff. They didn't know how the building worked. And so it's just really been a goal of mine to help families feel welcome and invited. And that's so important to our staff as well. I look so forward. We just now are opening back up to inviting families in, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that in the fall, we will begin our transitioning to school. It's a week-long activity where we can offer different opportunities, but we're really excited and hopeful as the rest of the country is.
Seth or Ernest on families? If not, I got one more question, but I'll give you the opportunity.
Well, one of the things we've done at Dunbar with our families in particular is to kind of give them that hybrid model. One of the things we wanted to do is make sure that parents felt safe coming back into the schools. So when we had our parent meetings, we had them in the gym, but we didn't want to overcrowd our gymnasium. So of course we wanted to have our seating socially distanced, but then we also had parents that still, were hesitant about coming back in. So we wanted to offer that hybrid model so that they can zoom in. Just like our kids, we had our roomies and our zoomies. So we had our parent zoomies and our parent roomies. And so that was powerful because we were able to, in our in-person meetings, project via Zoom, also open up the chat so parents could also comment in the chat and ask questions and acknowledge them as well. So it was the best of both worlds. So we're actually moving back into pretty much in-person parent meetings now. So we're not having to offer that opportunity. Even I can think of our holiday program and our Black History program that was broadcast via YouTube Live. We were not able to invite the parents in to be spectators for those type of events, but we still wanted them to see their kids being showcased. So we were able to do that via YouTube Live. And that was a big learning curve for us because we didn't typically do that kind of thing. We had to get sound systems set up. We had to make sure that people on the other end could actually hear the broadcast. So, of course, when we talked about technology not going anywhere, that was one aspect of how we can still embrace technology and bring parents and the community members into the school where we weren't able to do that in the past. And I think one of the things that we want to talk about with our staff is to make sure we have random acts of kindness year round. So with my staff, I like to make sure that a couple of times a month, we're doing something special for them. Surprises, whether it's a pop-up shop, whether it's those snacks in the morning. And it got to the point now where we have other staff members sponsoring staff events. I could think of one of my teachers that through her network, she brought coffee and donuts for the staff on her own. And that was powerful because we want that to be something where it's a family atmosphere. It's not just the leadership and the leadership team sponsoring things, but we're sponsoring things for each other. And so that's powerful. And so just thinking about random acts of kindness all year long. And it doesn't take a lot of money, creating those coupons where you say early release day, it's powerful. Even more so, it's powerful is late arrival pass. You can sleep in a little longer this morning. We have you covered, but just make sure you come in, but let you arrive a little bit later. So we were very creative with those types of incentives and coupons, and just making sure teachers all year long felt appreciated, not just during the holidays and not just during what's coming up in the first week in May, Teacher Appreciation Week, but all year long.
Thanks. All right, question to everyone. And we've got, literally you've got 30 seconds to answer. So 30 seconds in that elevator with a school district official or a state legislator, what do you need? to be successful? What do you still need? Who wants to start?
I need support. I need people that care as much about my kids as I do. I need folks that care about my teachers as much as I do. I need partners. That's what I need. And I'm looking forward to our new superintendent, Dr. Melvin Brown, coming in from, I think, Ohio. Have not met him, but I look forward to his leadership.
I'm not going to get political in this one, but I do need a state legislature and a governor who understands what's happening in public schools. That's why I'm going to leave it.
You do in Florida. I'm going to say it for you, Principal Dog. In Florida, yes, you do. I've been following Florida.
Good. Not getting political, but that's what we need. That's what I need.
That's a fair statement.
I'll talk a little bit about my wish list. My wish list would be whenever the federal dollars run out, that we don't lose sight of the supports that are needed, specifically in schools of poverty, high potential, in that oftentimes the status quo formula for funding shouldn't always be the status quo funding for all schools.
I'm going to say continue asking for input from educators when making decisions that impact students and educators. Include us in the conversation and ask us for our input.
I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I'm hoping that I'm in the elevator with all of you when this gets asked, because I'm gonna be like, yes, 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 yes. I would just add and make sure that they're asking the students in the community. So many times, and again, we always do things to communities. Can we involve the community members and especially the students?
Andrea, you get to answer this one too. And
I was hoping
expand
that
to Congress if you want.
Well, I was just going to say, and I'm hoping that the lawnmower next door isn't too distracting. Yeah, we need legislative policies and investment, right? We need dollars to support. I know I saw great questions about the sustainability of a lot of these efforts. We need for the rest of our lawmakers to see and value early childhood and elementary education in the same ways that this group here today does, and to make sure that policies and dollars support the incredible efforts that all of you have made to ensure, again, that every child and every family and every professional person working in a school has what they need to reach their highest potential.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you. I really appreciate your comments and your insights. I think there's a lot to take away for folks who tuned in to this webinar today. Emily?
Thank you, Laura, and thank you to all of our incredible principals, speakers, and of course, Andrea. Thank you so much for this very, very, very engaging and insightful discussion. And we have one slide to remind you of our upcoming webinars, so please register. And if you haven't yet, we posted our evaluation poll. We take your feedback very, very, very seriously. So please complete that poll before you log off and join us for one of our upcoming GLR Learning Tuesdays. Again, thank you to everybody, and thank you for offering your condolences and moment of silence in honor of Dr. Lillian Lowry as well. So thank you, everybody, and we hope to see you again soon. And thank you so much, Laura, for your brilliant moderation. Take care, everybody.